We often think of being a king as the ultimate win condition of history. You get the palace, the power, and the fancy hat. But in historic England, being king wasn't just a job. It was a grueling, dangerous, and highly choreographed life cycle. From the moment you drew your first breath to the moment they lowered you into a cathedral vault, every second of your life was governed by ritual. Today, we're walking through every stage of becoming and being a king in historic England. Stage 1. Birth. In the Middle Ages and the Tudor era, you didn't just need to be born, you needed to be born right. Usually, that meant being the firstborn male. You'd spend your early years in a household separate from your parents. You weren't raised by the queen. You were raised by a governess and a small army of servants. The goal? Don't die. Seriously, infant mortality was the biggest threat to the dynasty. If you were the spare, the younger brother, your life was a waiting game. You were a backup plan, often steered toward the church, unless your older brother had a tragic accident or a bout of smallpox. Stage 2. Training. A king had to be two things, a scholar and a warrior. By age 7, your education shifted into high gear. You'd learn Latin, French, the language of the court, and later, Italian or Spanish. But you couldn't just read books. You had to look the part. You spent hours in the saddle learning to joust and hunt. Hunting wasn't just a hobby. It was military maneuvers in disguise. You had to show the nobles that you were physically strong enough to lead them into a muddy field in France and actually win. Stage 3. The accession. The moment the old king dies, you are technically king. The king is dead. Long live the king isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a legal necessity to ensure the country doesn't spiral into civil war during the transition. Now, you have to secure the Treasury and the Tower of London. You'd move to the Palace of Westminster, surrounded by advisors who are all trying to figure out if they can manipulate you. This is the most dangerous time. If your claim is weak, this is when a cousin from York or Lancaster starts polishing their own sword. Stage 4. The coronation. This is the big one. In historic England, this wasn't just a party. It was a religious sacrament. The most important part wasn't the crown. It was the anointing. The archbishop would pour holy oil on your head, chest, and hands. At this moment, you weren't just a man anymore. You were God's anointed. To strike you was now a sin against God himself. You'd then be weighed down by the robes of state, handed the scepter representing justice, and finally, the St. Edward's crown would touch your head. You are now officially the center of the universe. Stage 5. The long haul. Now you have to actually rule. This meant the progress. Traveling around England with 500 servants, eating your nobles out of house and home to show them who's boss. You also need a queen, not for love, but for a treaty and an heir. If she doesn't produce a son, the cycle breaks, and history gets messy. Between the paperwork and the politics, you're likely leading an army to defend your lands in France, or putting down a rebellion in the north. Being king was mostly just high-stakes crisis management. The final stage: death and legacy. If you survived the plagues, the battles, and the assassins, you'd die in your bed, hopefully with a son standing by. Your body would be embalmed, displayed in a state funeral, and buried under a massive stone effigy. But your life cycle doesn't truly end until the next person in line starts the whole process over again. The crown moves on, the name changes, but the stages remain the same. It was a life of golden cages and constant pressure, but it built the England we know today. Which king do you think handled these stages the best? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. I'll see you in the next era.